Hello everyone, in this video I am going to show you how we can perform CRUD operations in ASP.NET MVC web application using MySQL database. Now in order to start I am going to open my exam. Now you might know this exam software that allow us to create local database using phpMyAdmin and allow to host a website in locally. So we have to start MySQL database and Apache web server, and please ensure by visiting to localhost /phpMyAdmin and this phpMyAdmin is working. Now the next thing is create the application. In Visual Studio I am going to create new application and then I am going to select web application, model, view, controller, language as C#. Okay. Now press continue. I am going to use the authentication as individual authentication, that means the built-in authentication system will be included in this application. Now I am going to click continue. Then the project name I am going to use as employees. Create. Now my project name is employees. Now firstly we can build this application to ensure it is working or not. Okay, now it asks me to install some HTTP development certificate because I installed this Visual Studio in my Mac for first time, that's why. So install and trust. If you are using a Mac, it will ask you some permissions. So enter your password. So it will start to run now. Okay, now it's working. Currently the application is using a SQLite database. Let me go ahead and show you. In my project solution, if we hover into our project, here we have this app.db. This is a SQLite database. So what I will do, just connect to my phpMyAdmin. To do that, I am going to open my app settings.json, and then here we have to pass in our connection string. So the default connection I am going to replace as in double quotations. Here we have to say something like server. So I am going to set this server is equals to, here let's use capital S, so it is more readable. So server is equals to localhost. Now what is this? If you hover into this phpMyAdmin, if you go to user account, you will see this is your host name. Also you can use this IP address 127 or something like that. Okay, in this case I can use localhost, and then I have to provide the port. What is the port? If you open your exam software or whatever software, you could right click on this MySQL database and click configure. Config section will show you this port number 3306. Okay, normally it will be the port number of all MySQL databases, so you could try that. Firstly 3306. The next one, here we have to separate by semicolon if we providing new parameter. Now the next one is provide the database name. The thing is, database name or whatever database can be created already or is not being created. That means this application is going to create the database dynamically. So we can use any database name that not existing in our phpMyAdmin. So I will say something like let's say employee DB Okay, and then I am going to specify what is my user. For that I will say user is equals to root. As you saw here, this is username, root of our local host. So root, and the password. If you are using a password in your PHP myadmin, you can enter that here after the password and then equals symbol. If you are not using any password, you have to keep this equals symbol and then just leave it as it is and then put semicolon. Now to remember the password, we are going to use this persist security info, set that equals to here persist security info, info is capital I, as true. Okay, now that is it. Don't put the semicolon because this is a JSON file. It asks me to please install command line tools to enable version control features. I don't have to use version control, that's fine. So in the program.cs, here I am going to just create this connection with our database. I am going to just comment this builder.services.addDB connection at DB context, comment those everything, and I am going to say builder.services.add DB context pool. Don't say add DB context, instead use add DB context pool and then angle brackets here. Now inside the angle bracket we are going to say application DB context. What is that? It is a class that already coming when you are using default authentication given by Visual Studio. For example, here this application DB context available inside this data folder. If you are using that default authentication, so this class will be created. If you are not using that default authentication, you can go ahead and create the file like this, public class application DB context. So you don't have to inherit this identity DB context because it is coming built into the authentication. Okay, now that's fine. Here in the program.cs, after the angle brackets, we can go ahead and say parentheses. Inside parentheses, I am going to type options equals, options after that equals and greater than symbol, and then I am going to create a new line space, so it is more readable, it will make more readable. So I will say options dot use MySQL. Here you can see it is not available, it is showing us an error. That because we have to use our package manager, NuGet package manager, to install the MySQL. Click tools and then click manage NuGet packages. You will see something like NuGet packages, and when you go there you will click this browse button and then type MySQL. Now we have to install this Pomelo one. Let me go ahead and see Pomelo dot entity framework core.mysql. This is the package that we have to install. Okay, and then you can select the latest version that's suitable with your .NET version, then click add package, select your target project here, then click OK. If you are using Windows, when you are going to add that package, you will see your project in the right side, so select your project there, then click install there. Okay, now here use MySQL function method is working. Now inside this we have to pass in the connection string. Do you remember the JSON file? Here this is the connection string. and after that we have to pass in another argument. So this argument will ask us what is the server version. So we can automatically decide the server version by using server version dot auto detect method. Now we have to pass in the connection is string inside this. Okay, now finally we can end up with the semicolon. Now I can go ahead and open my terminal, right click on your project, then you will see option to open in terminal or something like that, or otherwise if you are using Windows you can press tools and then you can press the command line tools for NuGet package, something like that, and then here we are going to what is the terminal is not coming. Okay, now here I am going to type .NET EF, let me zoom that, .NET EF migrations add init or something. You can define what is your migration file name, but before doing that you have to just delete your current migrations folder here, this one in the data folder, click delete that folder, and also I am going to delete this local database file because it is unused now. Now I can say .NET EF migrations add something like initial create. Now it showing us .NET EF migrations add initial create is this sh command not found .NET. Now that because I think I had to install this command line tools for enable version control features. Now I will click install. Now these things are happening in Mac OS. After doing that I can go ahead and create my initial migration file .NET EF migrations add init or something. Now if you are using Windows you can simply use this add hyphen migration command and then specify the migration file name, for example add hyphen migration initial create. Now if you are using .NET Core CLI like me, we can use .NET EF migrations add and the migration file name. Now the next thing is execute this .NET EF database update. Okay, now if you are using Windows, simply you can use update hyphen database, capital U capital D. Now we can do that here. After executing .NET EF migration add init, press enter. So we can use this command. Guys, I will include these commands in the video description, so you don't have to worry about that. So after that we can use .NET EF EF database update. Here database update. Okay. Okay, now we can go ahead and check our phpMyAdmin localhost /phpMyAdmin. Here we have our employee DB now, and it should also have these tables. Okay, now the next thing I will do, just create a new model. In this models folder we can go ahead and create a model. Click add new class, right click this models, click add new class, type general, select empty class. Here I am going to say employee. Okay, now here we have our employee model. Now we can go ahead and delete this constructor. So here we are going to type some properties inside this. For example, id public int id. Here we are using get and set. Okay. Now after that I am going to say public string name get semicolon set semicolon. Now the next one public string email. So this will have get and set. So the next one phone public string phone. This will have get and set. Now we created our model, so we can go ahead and create our database context is in this application DB context. Now here after this constructor I am going to create a new property public db set and then this angle brackets, and between angle brackets we can type our model name, which is employee. Now it should suggest us. So until that I can go ahead and create the variable name for that employees, and then put braces. Inside braces I will say get semicolon set semicolon. Now we should be able to see recommendation. Here we can press this bulb and then using employees dot models. Here we imported the model here using employees models folder. Now it is fine. The next step is create the controller. Inside the controller we are going to create our controller. Right click at new class, select ASP.NET Core, select controller class. Here we are going to specify employee. Employee controller is the class name. Okay, now the controller will have the constructor. I am going to say public employee controller. Now put parentheses. Inside parentheses we are going to specify the DB context. This is the file application DB context. Application DB context. Now don't worry guys, because it will not suggest you until you import that here. So we can go ahead and say DB context as the parameter name. Okay, now we can check our bulb here. It should show us. Click that and import using data.application DB context. Okay, better we could import that to the top using employees.data. Okay, here it is added, and then we are going to put braces. Okay, now in the top I am going to create a new property above this constructor. Inside the class I will say private read only application DB context. This one, actually that is coming because of this class. So after that I am going to specify the name of that as underscore DB context. Now in the constructor we are receiving this db context, so we are going to set this underscore db context is equals to this db context. Okay guys, so after that here we have our index page, that means we should have our employee. So currently we don't have the index for that, so we are going to create a folder, add new folder. In the views folder I am going to call that as employees. Here inside this I am going to add a new file. Here we have to select the razor page. I am going to call that as index. Here that should be added into the employees folder. Okay, now here we have the index.cshtml inside the employees folder. Now here we are returning the index, so what I will do, just create a variable var employees is equals to underscore db context dot employees dot toList. You might thinking what is this employees? Actually that is added here, application db context file, and we have this property employees. It is receiving the data into this variable. So after that here in the controller we are going to return a view with this object. Okay, now before I go next, I have to rename this folder employees into employee, because as you see in this controller it have employee before the controller. Now ASP.NET are finding what are corresponding view to controllers by it is name before the controller, so that name should be same as in the views folder, so that is employee. Now I am going to create a new view inside this employee, because before we are going to see what are data available, we should have option to add data. So I will say add new file, select razor view. I am going to specify that name as create. Now here we should have some information about what is this page is. I will say h1 add employee. Now after that I am going to say hyphen div. Inside the div firstly let me say the div class as some bootstrap one mb hyphen 3. Now here we need the label, so this label has the class of form hyphen label. So I am going to specify it is value as name. So the next one is the input field. Input type as text. So the class for this as form hyphen control. Okay. Now after that I am going to copy this and paste that in the below. The next value was email, so that is fine. The next value was the, here in the models we have name, email, phone. Okay, so in the create I will ask the phone, so this will be phone. Okay, now let's see how this form look likes. Before that we need to create the controller code for that. In the employee controller we have to create the view public iaction result create. okay, parentheses, and then in the braces I am going to return view. Okay, now we can stop this and try again. Now I will go to employee / create. Here we have text fields, so we need a submit button there. Here in the create view I am going to say button type equals to button, class equals to double quotations btn and then btn hyphen primary. Okay, now we need to save this. Now we are going to move these codes into a form. I can say here angle bracket form asp hyphen action equals to create. Okay, then I am going to move this ending tag into the down. Alright, so the code is fine. The next step is to say what are these fields and what module value is corresponding to that field. Now in order to do that, in the top I will say at model, then specify what is the model. So here this is the model, so I have to say the project name here, which is this one, employees dot models, here this one in the models folder, and we have employee. Okay, so after that here in this input, after the input tag I will say asp hyphen action asp4, okay, asp hyphen 4 equals to, now here in the model we have name. Okay, so we have to use these variables names there. So in the create I will say name, and then here email, after the input tag asp hyphen 4 the email, and then here after input tag asp hyphen 4 double quotations, inside double quotations, that was phone in the model. Here this is the phone. Alright, I made a mistake here, so this should be input. Okay, input type as submit. Now that is fine. So after that also here the input indent tag is not there, but I can say value as save, so I can remove this text now. Now where we are going to submit this form, for example if we click this, to where these data will go. For that I will open my employee controller, and then here I am going to create a new method. So this will be in http post, okay, that's how we are specifying. We are receiving post request to below method, which is public iaction result create. Okay, now put parentheses, inside the parentheses we are taking the employee to here, and I will say employees. So here this should be as our model. Okay, so we have to say using employees.models, so it will fix. So after that, at braces, inside the braces I am going to say return view. Okay, now here I am going to say underscore db context, which is this one, dot employees dot add. Now in the parentheses I am going to say employee this value. Okay, and after that I will say underscore db context dot save changes, finally parentheses and semicolon. Okay, now I am going to run the application again. Okay, here we need to put semicolon somewhere. Okay, that's so I am going to open this page again. Here I am going to type employee name as Hussein, email as something, phone number, save. Okay, now I hope the data is added, so I am going to check my database. In the employees DB, here we have employees table and their data is added. The next step is show employees. Here we created our index.cs HTML. So this is the page that we are going to show all employees. So let's configure our employee controller. Here we already return in the object through this, so only we have to do just access these fields and show the data. So here in the index.cs HTML I am going to say at model I enumerable, now at square brackets, and between that I am going to say what is my model. In the employees project, here dot models folder we have our employee model. Okay, then we can go ahead and create our h1 to show employee list, text employee list. Now here we can create a table. So the table first, table head as t head. Now here I am going to create tr tags. Inside tr tag we can add table head. So first one at to show at not at let's say hash, because at cannot be used here. So this is the ID. So the next one I will say name, the next one I will say email, final one here phone. Alright, now after that t head I am going to say t body. Inside the t body I will say at for each now this will loop through the object that receive into here var employee. Do you remember that we are sending the object from here? So that's what I am talking about. So employee in model. Okay, now I will say braces. Inside the braces the tr tag. So first value as at employee dot id. So the next tr table row as at employee dot name. So the next one is the at employee dot, what was that, phone, right? So let's check that. Oh, no, that's email. Employee dot email. So the last one here, this should be tr at employee dot phone. Okay, now what I will do, just stop this current process and run again. Currently we have some issue here, so this one, employee dot phone. Guys, this object is coming from this controller. Okay, don't get confused what is those. Here we are sending the view with this object. So I should see in the employee URL, here we can see this data, but it is showing before the table head. What's going on here? Let's check. Here the index table head. Okay, now here, okay, the table head fine, table fine, tr, okay, table head, t body, it is fine for each. Table row, table head, okay. The thing is, I am using tr here, that should be th, okay, th, also here th, okay. Now I can go ahead and run again. Okay, now the data is visible. Alright, so the next step is add some edit and delete button. Okay guys, as this video get longer, I am going to stop this video from now, and I will come up with a part 2 of this video, which include details and update delete of this CRUD. Okay, I hope this video helps. If this video helps, please subscribe. Thank you.